My wife tried to have me killed for $2 million. My name is Gerald Fletcher, and I'm 38 years old. Construction site manager, father to a 7-year-old girl named Clara. I spent 12 years building a life with a woman I thought I knew, sharing a bed, raising our daughter, working 60-hour weeks so she could live comfortably. Turns out the woman sleeping next to me was planning my funeral. The night Clara pressed her hand over my mouth and whispered that her mother had hired someone to kill me, I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Heavy boots. Deliberate. A stranger in my home with a knife and a gun paid $50,000 to make me disappear so Diane could collect the insurance money and start over with her lover. I didn't freeze. I didn't beg. I fought back, and then I made sure Diane and everyone who helped her lost everything. But let me start from the beginning. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. It was a Tuesday night in late October, and I'd just gotten home from a 14-hour shift at the construction site I managed. My entire body ached, shoulders, back, knees, and there was dust caked into every crease of my work clothes. All I wanted was a hot shower and maybe 20 minutes with Clara before her bedtime. Diane was in the kitchen when I walked in, phone pressed to her ear, speaking in that hushed, clipped tone she'd been using for months. The kind of voice you use when you don't want to be overheard. She glanced at me, her expression flickering with something I couldn't quite place, then turned away. "I'll call you back," she said into the phone, and hung up without another word. "Who was that?" I asked, dropping my keys on the counter. "Work stuff," she said, not meeting my eyes. "You're late again." I didn't have the energy to fight about it. "Yeah. Had to finish pouring the foundation on the Miller project before the weather turns." She made a small noise in the back of her throat, dismissive, irritated. I'd been late a lot lately, but only because I'd been picking up extra shifts to cover the credit card debt Diane kept racking up. Designer bags from stores I couldn't pronounce. Spa weekends with her friends. That new BMW she absolutely needed because the perfectly good SUV we had was embarrassing. I worked 60-hour weeks so she could live like we were millionaires, and somehow I was always the problem. I headed for the stairs, too tired to argue. "I'm gonna shower." "Don't wake Clara," Diane called after me. I stopped at Clara's bedroom door on the way to the bathroom. It was cracked open, and I poked my head in to say goodnight. She was sitting up in bed, her stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hopscotch, clutched tight to her chest. The look on her face stopped me cold. Fear. Pure, wide-eyed terror. "Daddy," she whispered. "Come here." I crossed the room and knelt beside her bed, my heart already picking up speed. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Clara reached up and pressed her small hand over my mouth, hard, and leaned in close so her lips were right at my ear. "Don't speak," she breathed. "Mommy's planning something, I heard her. There's a man coming, tonight." My blood turned to ice. "What man? What do you mean?" "She was on the phone," Clara whispered, her voice cracking. She said the money would be hers after, and that you wouldn't be a problem anymore." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Daddy, I'm scared." I pulled her into my arms, holding her tight, my mind racing. Then I heard it. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate. Downstairs, the creak of the back door opening, boots on hardwood. I moved fast. I carried Clara to her closet, set her down inside, and looked her dead in the eyes. "You stay here. You don't come out for anyone but me. Understand?" She nodded, trembling. I grabbed the baseball bat from the hallway closet and moved toward the stairs. My hands were steady, my jaw was set. Because here's the thing about me. I don't panic. I get angry. And in that moment, the anger was a cold, hard thing settling into my bones. At the bottom of the stairs stood a man I'd never seen before. Big guy, late 40s, wearing all black. He had a hunting knife in one hand and a suppressed pistol tucked into his belt. He looked up at me like this was just another Tuesday. "Gerald Fletcher?" he said. "That's right," I said. "And you've got about 3 seconds to tell me who sent you before I break your skull." He smiled. Actually smiled. "Your wife said you'd be asleep by now. Said you're a heavy sleeper." "My wife," I said slowly. Doesn't know me as well as she thinks. He lunged. I swung. The bat connected with his forearm and I heard the crack of bone before he even hit the ground. The knife clattered across the floor. He screamed, reaching for the pistol with his other hand, but I was already on him. I brought the bat down on his wrist, another crack, and he crumpled, howling. I kicked the gun away and stood over him, breathing hard. Who hired you? Say her name. Go to hell. I pressed my boot down on his broken arm. He screamed again, the sound filling the house. Say her name. Diane, he gasped. Diane Fletcher. She paid me $50,000, half up front. Said you had a $2 million life insurance policy. I stepped back. My vision was red at the edges. $50,000. That was the price she'd put on my life. That was what 12 years of marriage and a 7-year-old daughter were worth to her. Diane appeared at the top of the stairs wearing her robe, her hair perfect like she'd been expecting to wake up a widow and wanted to look the part. Gerald, she started, arranging her face into shock. What's happening? Who is this man? I stared at her. Don't. I don't understand. I said don't. My voice shook the walls. I heard everything. Clara heard everything. You hired this man to kill me in my own home. You were going to let our daughter find my body. Diane's mask slipped. I watched the calculation flash across her face, deny, deflect. But she must have seen something in my eyes that told her it was over. Fine, she said, her voice hardening. Yes, I hired him. Because I'm done, Gerald. I'm done being married to a construction worker. I'm done pretending I'm happy when I deserve so much more. You deserve more? I laughed, a cold, hollow sound. I paid for everything. And your solution was to murder me? The insurance money would have set me up for life, she said, like it was obvious. I'd have found someone better, someone who could actually provide. I took a step toward her. You're not getting a dime. You're not getting this house, and you are never going to see Clara again. She scoffed. Please, you think anyone will believe you? There are recordings, I said. Clara's room has a baby monitor. It's been recording for the last hour. Your call, your confession, everything. For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. The police arrived within minutes. Red and blue lights swept across the walls of my living room, painting everything in harsh alternating colors. I stood in the hallway with my hands visible, the bat on the floor beside the still groaning Holloway, and waited. 2 officers came through the front door first, a younger guy with his hand on his weapon and an older woman who looked like she'd seen everything twice. She took one look at the scene and said, Sir, are you Gerald Fletcher? I am. We got a call about an attempted home invasion? That's right, I said. This man broke into my house with a knife and a gun. He was hired by my wife to kill me. The younger officer blinked. Your wife? My wife, I said, and I have proof. Diane was already coming down the stairs, tears streaming down her face, her whole body shaking. She was good. I'll give her that. She looked terrified, vulnerable, like the victim. Officers, thank God you're here, she sobbed. I don't know what's happening. He forced his way in. He attacked my husband. Ma'am, the older officer said gently, we need you to step back. He said he was going to hurt us. He said, Ma'am. I pulled out my phone and held it up. I have a recording, I said, from my daughter's baby monitor. It's been recording for the past hour. The older officer, her nameplate read Ramirez, looked at me, then at Diane, then back at me. Can we hear it? I played it. Diane's voice came through clear as glass. The phone call, the confirmation of payment, the timeline. The phrase that made my blood freeze all over again. After tonight, the money's mine. Officer Ramirez's expression didn't change, but her partner's jaw tightened. Holloway groaned on the floor. Diane went silent. Mrs. Fletcher, Ramirez said, we need you to put your hands behind your back. What? No, you don't understand. Turn around, now. Diane's tears stopped. Just like that. Her face went blank, then cold. She turned around and let them cuff her without another word. Ramirez read her the charges as they walked her toward the door. conspiracy to commit murder, solicitation of murder. Diane didn't look at me until they reached the front door. Then she stopped, turned her head and stared at me through the window of the police cruiser. Pure hatred. No remorse. No shame. Just this cold, venomous rage that I'd ruined her plan. I stared back. 12 years of marriage collapsed into that single look. I'd loved this woman. I'd worked myself to exhaustion for her. I'd built a life with her. And she'd hired someone to erase me. Paramedics loaded Holloway onto a stretcher, both arms in temporary splints. He was talking before they even got him in the ambulance, giving up everything. The burner phone, the cash payments in a shoebox under Diane's side of the bed. The schedule she'd laid out right down to the time I usually went to sleep. He wasn't loyal. He was just a professional who knew when to cooperate. The younger officer took my statement. I walked him through the whole thing, Clara's warning, the confrontation, the fight. My hands were steady. My voice didn't shake. I'd done what I had to do, and I'd do it again. It took 2 hours for them to finish processing the scene. 2 hours of photographs, questions, evidence bags. Finally, Officer Ramirez approached me. "Mr. Fletcher," she said, "you did the right thing calling us. And you did the right thing protecting your daughter. Thank you. We'll need you to come down to the station tomorrow to sign some paperwork, but for tonight you're free to go." I nodded. She left. The house went quiet. I climbed the stairs and went to Clara's room. She was still in the closet where I'd left her, curled up small, her rabbit clutched to her chest. Her eyes were wide open. "Daddy?" I knelt down and pulled her into my arms. "It's over, sweetheart. You're safe now." She buried her face in my shoulder and started to cry, big, shuddering sobs that shook her whole body. I carried her to her bed, held her close, and told her over and over that I would never let anyone hurt her. Never. "Is Mommy coming back?" she whispered. I looked at her. "No, Clara, Mommy's never coming back." She cried harder, but I think it was relief as much as grief. I stayed with her until she fell asleep, stroking her hair, whispering promises I intended to keep. When her breathing finally evened out, I sat back against the headboard and stared at the ceiling. The immediate crisis was over. Diane was in custody. Holloway was cooperating. Clara was safe. But this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. There would be a divorce, a custody battle, criminal proceedings. Diane would fight dirty. I knew that much. She'd lie, manipulate, twist every fact she could. And I needed to be ready. I looked down at Clara, her small hand still gripping mine even in sleep. I'd be ready. 3 days after Diane's arrest, I sat across from Roseanne McGraw in her downtown office. Documents covered the desk between us. Bank statements, credit card records, phone bills, every piece of paper that showed the life Diane had been living while planning my murder. Roseanne was exactly what I needed. Mid-50s, sharp-featured, with a smile that wasn't kind when she was about to destroy an opponent. She had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless in custody cases. People called her the best family attorney in the city. I called her the day after Diane's arraignment. "Mr. Fletcher," she said, tapping a pen against her notepad, "I've reviewed everything you sent me. The recording, the police report, Holloway's statement. This is the most clear-cut custody case I've ever seen." "Good," I said. "I want emergency sole custody. I want her parental rights terminated. I want her to never see Clara again." Roseanne nodded. "We'll file for emergency custody immediately, citing imminent danger. Given that your wife hired someone to murder you in the home where your daughter sleeps, no judge in their right mind will oppose it. What about our accounts? The house? Freeze everything joint. Today. I'll have the paperwork ready within the hour." She leaned forward. "Change the locks. Document every transaction she made in the last year. I want to see where that money went, who she was talking to, what she was planning. Build the timeline." I'd already started. I had spreadsheets showing Diane's spending going back 18 months. Designer bags, weekend trips with friends, charges at restaurants I'd never been to on nights I was working late. I thought it was just her being careless with money. Turned out she was spending it on someone else. But I didn't know that yet. Clara wasn't sleeping. Not really. She'd wake up screaming 2-3 times a night, convinced someone was in the house, convinced the man was coming back. I moved her into my bedroom, set up a sleeping bag on the floor next to my bed so she could reach out and touch my hand if she needed to. It helped, a little, but I knew she needed more than I could give her. That's when I found Dr. Marianne Townsend. She was a child psychologist who specialized in trauma, kids who'd been through abuse, violence, things no child should ever see. Her office was designed to feel safe. Soft colors, toys in the corner, a couch instead of chairs. Clara's first session lasted 20 minutes. She didn't say much, just clutched her rabbit and stared at the floor. Dr. Townsend didn't push. "We'll go at Clara's pace," she told me afterward. "She's been through something terrifying. It's going to take time." It did take time. But slowly, week by week, the nightmares became less frequent. Clara started talking more, started drawing pictures in therapy, working through what had happened in ways she couldn't put into words yet. I'd sit in the waiting room and think about Diane sitting in a jail cell. I hoped she wasn't sleeping either. 2 days after Diane's arrest, her mother called me. Eunice Pemberton. I'd never liked her. She had this way of looking at me like I wasn't quite good enough for her daughter, like Diane had married down when she chose a construction worker instead of some corporate executive. "Gerald," she said, her voice shaking with fury. "How could you do this to her?" I blinked. "Excuse me? You ruined Diane's life. You had her arrested. You humiliated her." "Eunice," I said slowly, "Diane hired a man to murder me. He was in our house with a knife and a gun. She planned to have me killed while Clara slept down the hall. She made a mistake. People make mistakes, Gerald. You could have handled this privately." "A mistake?" My voice dropped. "She hired a hitman. That's not a mistake. That's premeditated murder. She was unhappy. You drove her to this with your hours, your temper." I hung up. I didn't have the energy to argue with someone who thought there was any excuse, any justification for what Diane had done. Over the next week, a few of our mutual friends reached out, trying to understand both sides, trying to see Diane's perspective. I cut them off, every one of them. There's no perspective that justifies hiring someone to kill your husband and orphan your daughter for money. Anyone who thought otherwise wasn't someone I needed in my life. Diane sat in county jail for 3 weeks. Bail was set at $500,000. Her family wouldn't pay it. Her friends wouldn't pay it. She stayed locked up. I used those 3 weeks to build my case. Every document, every transaction, every lie. Then Roseanne called me back to her office. "Gerald," she said when I walked in, "I need to show you something." She turned her computer screen toward me. It was a photograph. Diane at a restaurant, maybe 6 months earlier. She was sitting across from a man I didn't recognize. They were holding hands. I stared at the screen. "Who is that?" "His name is Adam Carver," Roseanne said. "He's a real estate developer, wealthy, divorced. And Diane's been having an affair with him for over a year." My jaw tightened. An affair. Of course there was an affair. Roseanne clicked to another document. "Here's the interesting part. Carver's the one who referred Diane to Vince Holloway." I looked at her. "What?" "Carver gave Diane the hitman's contact information." 2 days after Roseanne showed me that photograph, I was sitting in a corner booth at Eddie's Diner on the east side of town. The place smelled like coffee and bacon grease, reminded me of Saturday mornings with my dad when I was a kid, back when the world made sense. Thomas Vega slid into the booth across from me, former cop, maybe mid-50s, with a bulldog build and eyes that didn't miss anything. He set a worn leather notebook on the table. "You're the guy whose wife tried to have him killed," he said. Not a question. "That's right. And you want me to dig into the boyfriend?" "Adam Carver," I said. "I want to know everything. How involved he was, what he knew, what he did." Thomas nodded slowly. "You understand this might get ugly? Men like Carver. They've got lawyers, money, connections. They don't go down easy." "I don't care how hard he fights," I said. "I want him buried." Thomas smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "Then we're going to get along just fine." 2 weeks later, Thomas called me back to his office. He had everything. Carver hadn't just given Diane a referral to Holloway. He'd been there from the beginning, helped plan the whole damn thing. Thomas spread documents across his desk like a prosecutor laying out evidence. Text messages between Carver and Diane going back 14 months. Emails discussing the plan and timing. Bank records showing a $20,000 withdrawal from Carver's account 3 weeks before Holloway showed up at my house. Carver was with Diane when she first met Holloway, Thomas said. Helped her set up the burner phone, coached her on what to say to avoid detection. He wasn't some guy on the sidelines, he was a co-conspirator. I stared at the printouts. $20,000. That's what my life was worth to this man I'd never met. There's more, Thomas said. He pulled up an email thread on his laptop. After you were dead, they were going to wait 6 months, then go public with their relationship. Diane plays the grieving widow. Carver's the supportive friend who helps her move on. They'd already picked out a house in Malibu. He turned the screen toward me. There it was. A real estate listing for a beachfront property. $4 million. Ocean views. Infinity pool. They were going to live there. On my insurance money. While Clara grew up without a father. My hands curled into fists on the desk. What do you need from me? I asked. Nothing, Thomas said. I've got enough to bury him. Question is, what are you going to do with it? 3 days later, I walked into the district attorney's office. Juliet Ashford was exactly what I'd heard. Mid-40s, sharp as a knife, with the kind of presence that made you sit up straight without thinking about it. She'd built her career putting away domestic abusers and white-collar criminals who thought they were too rich to face consequences. She gestured to a chair across from her desk. Mr. Fletcher, I've been following your wife's case. Then you know she tried to have me killed. I do. Juliet leaned forward. And I know about Adam Carver. Your PI sent me a preliminary report. Walk me through it. I handed her the folder Thomas had compiled. Everything. The texts, the emails, the money trail, the house in Malibu. Juliet went through it page by page, her expression never changing. When she finished, she looked up at me. This is good work, she said. Very good. Carver's not just an accessory, he's a full co-conspirator. Can you charge him? Oh, I'm going to do more than charge him. Juliet's smile was ice cold. I'm going to bury him. Conspiracy to commit murder. Accessory before the fact. When I'm done, he'll be lucky if he sees daylight before he's 70. She closed the folder. Mr. Fletcher, she said, I want you to understand something. Your wife and her boyfriend thought they were smart. Thought they could plan a murder, collect the insurance, and ride off into the sunset. But they made one critical mistake. What's that? They underestimated you. Adam Carver was arrested 4 days later. Bail was set at $1 million. He posted it within 48 hours, had the money wired from some offshore account like it was nothing. But the damage was done. His name hit the newspapers the next morning. Local developer charged in murder-for-hire conspiracy. His business partners started distancing themselves immediately. Projects he'd been working on for years suddenly had new leadership. His fancy office downtown went quiet. Money couldn't save his reputation, and it damn sure couldn't save him from what was coming. Meanwhile, Diane's trial was approaching fast. She'd been offered a plea deal, 15 years. Her lawyer, Sylvester Pratt, had advised her to take it, but Diane refused. She was convinced she could beat the charges. Roseanne called me the day after Diane rejected the plea. Pratt's planning his defense, she said. He's going to argue Diane was manipulated by Carver, that she was a victim of coercive control. And he's going to try to make you look like the villain. Say your work hours, your temper, your behavior drove her to desperation. It's all lies. I know that. You know that. But Gerald, Roseanne's voice was serious. Lies can be powerful in a courtroom. Pratt's good. He's going to come at you hard. I leaned back in my chair. Let him. 2 weeks into preparing for the custody hearings, I walked into Roseanne's office and found someone new sitting at the conference table. She was maybe early 30s, dark hair pulled back, completely buried in a stack of documents. She had this look of total focus, the kind you see on people who actually care about getting things right. She glanced up when I walked in and smiled. It was warm, genuine. Mr. Fletcher? She said. I'm Valerie Sandoval. I'll be working on your case. I shook her hand. Gerald's fine. Gerald, then. She gestured to the chair across from her. I've been going through the custody filings. We've got a lot to cover. Over the next few weeks, Valerie and I spent hours together. We reviewed every document Diane's attorney might bring up. We strategized my testimony. We anticipated every angle Sylvester Pratt might use to make me look like the bad guy. My work hours, my temper, any moment I'd ever raised my voice in 12 years of marriage. Valerie was sharp, relentless. She'd catch things I missed, ask questions I hadn't thought of, push me to articulate answers that sounded rational instead of angry. But here's the thing. She also made me laugh. I don't know how she did it. I was living through the worst period of my life, preparing to fight for custody of my traumatized daughter, while my wife sat in jail for trying to have me murdered. And somehow Valerie would say something, some dry comment about Pratt's courtroom theatrics or Diane's ridiculous spending habits, and I'd find myself smiling. It felt impossible, but it also felt necessary. One night after a particularly brutal prep session, Valerie closed her laptop and just looked at me. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said. "Sure. How are you holding it together? After everything she did, how are you not falling apart?" I thought about it. Remembered the way Clara had looked that first night, trembling in her closet. The way she still reached for my hand every time we walked anywhere. "Because I have Clara," I said. "She needs me to be strong. She needs to know that no matter what happens, I'm not going anywhere." Valerie nodded slowly. "And because I'm not finished yet," I added. My voice went harder. "Diane took my trust, my marriage, my sense of safety in my own home. But she's not taking anything else. Not my daughter, not my future. Nothing." Valerie was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You're a good man, Gerald. Clara's lucky to have you." Nobody had said that to me in a long time. Maybe ever. 3 weeks later, we went on our first date. It wasn't planned. Valerie mentioned a cafe near her apartment that made decent coffee, and I said I could use decent coffee. And somehow we ended up sitting across from each other on a Saturday afternoon with nothing to do with depositions or court filings. "I'm not ready for anything serious," I told her right away. "I'm still in the middle of a divorce and a criminal trial and—" "I know," Valerie said. "And I'm not pushing, I like spending time with you." She took a sip of her coffee. "And if that's all this is right now, that's okay." I believed her. The first time Clara met Valerie, I was terrified. Clara had been scared of every adult who wasn't me or Dr. Townsend since the night Diane was arrested. She'd flinch when strangers spoke to her. She'd hide behind my legs at the grocery store. But when Valerie walked into the house carrying a bag of art supplies she'd picked up just because, Clara didn't hide. She watched Valerie carefully for a minute. Then she said, "Do you know how to draw horses?" "Not very well," Valerie admitted, "but I can try." They sat at the kitchen table for an hour, drawing terrible horses and laughing about it. Clara showed Valerie her stuffed rabbit. She told Valerie about her favorite books. For those moments, she looked like a normal kid again. I stood in the doorway watching them, and something shifted in my chest. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. Later that night, after Valerie left and Clara was asleep, I sat on the couch and let myself think about the future. Not the trial, not Diane, not the custody battle, just the possibility that things might actually be okay. For the first time in months, I believed it. 2 weeks before Diane's trial, my phone rang. I was making dinner, pasta, Clara's favorite, when Juliet Ashford's name appeared on the screen. I answered on the second ring. "Juliet, what's going on?" "We have a problem," she said. Her voice was tight, controlled. The kind of control prosecutors use when they're trying not to lose their composure. My stomach dropped. "What kind of problem?" "Vince Holloway recanted his testimony." I stopped stirring the sauce. "He what?" "He's now claiming you hired him to stage a fake attack. Says you offered him $100,000 to break into your house, threaten you with a weapon, and then testify that Diane set the whole thing up. He's saying you wanted to frame her so you could take full custody of Clara." For a second, I couldn't speak. Couldn't process what I was hearing. "That's insane," I finally said. "There's no evidence of any of this. I know," Juliet said. "But Pratt doesn't need evidence. He just needs to create reasonable doubt. If the jury thinks there's even a chance you staged this, they'll acquit. My hand tightened around the phone. How is Holloway getting away with this? He confessed. He gave you everything, the burner phone, the payments, the timeline. Holloway has a new lawyer, Juliet interrupted. Someone Pratt connected him with, and they're pushing this story hard. Holloway's claiming you threatened his family if he didn't go along with the frame-up. I felt the kitchen tilt around me. This couldn't be happening. After everything, after the recording, the money trail, Diane's own confession, she might actually walk free. What do we do? I asked. Juliet was quiet for a moment. I'm looking into it. But Gerald, this is bad. Really bad. 2 days later, Roseanne called. Her voice was shaking. That's what scared me most. Roseanne McGraw didn't shake. She demolished opposing counsel in courtrooms. She buried people who crossed her clients. And now she sounded like someone had just punched her in the throat. Gerald, she said, I need you to come to my office. Now. I was there in 20 minutes. Roseanne handed me a document the moment I walked through her door. I scanned the first page, then the second, and felt my world collapse. It was a motion, filed by Sylvester Pratt. Emergency custody of Clara Fletcher to be awarded to Eunice Pemberton pending the outcome of the criminal trial against Diane Fletcher. The argument was laid out in cold, legal language. Gerald Fletcher is an unfit parent who staged a violent home invasion that traumatized his minor daughter. Evidence suggests Mr. Fletcher orchestrated the entire incident to frame his wife and gain sole custody. In the interest of the child's safety and well-being, temporary custody should be awarded to the maternal grandmother. Can they do this? I asked. My voice sounded hollow. They're trying, Roseanne said. We have a hearing next week. I sat down. My hands were shaking, actually shaking. Losing Clara, even temporarily, was the one thing I couldn't survive. Everything else I could fight through. Diane's lies, Carver's involvement, the media circus. The humiliation of having my entire life picked apart in court. But Clara, she was the reason I was fighting. She was the reason I got out of bed every morning. She was the reason I hadn't given up when this whole nightmare started. We'll fight this, Roseanne said. We'll show that Holloway's story is garbage. We'll prove. Will it be enough? I interrupted. Roseanne looked at me. She didn't answer right away, and that told me everything. I don't know, she finally said. That night I sat in Clara's room and watched her sleep. She'd kicked off her blanket again. I pulled it back up, tucking it around her shoulders the way she liked. Her stuffed rabbit was clutched against her chest. Her face was peaceful. She looked so small, so fragile. I thought about Diane, sitting in her cell somewhere, probably smiling, probably sure she was about to win, probably already imagining the moment Clara was handed over to Eunice, the moment I lost everything that mattered. My hands were still shaking. I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't. Clara stirred in her sleep, made a small sound, then settled again. I stayed there watching her breathe, and felt something harden in my chest. Diane thought she'd found a way out. Holloway thought he could lie his way to a better deal. Pratt thought he could twist the narrative and destroy me. They were wrong. I didn't know how yet, but I was going to find a way to fight back. I was going to tear apart every lie they'd built, and I was going to make damn sure Clara stayed with me, because I wasn't done yet, not even close. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with every document, every recording, every piece of evidence spread across the surface like I was building a war map, which I was, because that's what this had become, a war for my daughter's life. The overhead light buzzed. The clock ticked past midnight, then 1, then 2. My eyes burned, my back ached. I didn't care. There had to be something I was missing, some way to prove Holloway was lying, some crack in the story that would blow the whole thing apart. By dawn, I found it. Holloway's recantation claimed I'd contacted him through an encrypted messaging app called SecureLine 2 months before the attack. He had dates, specific dates when we'd supposedly met to plan the staged invasion. But I'd never used SecureLine in my life, and more importantly, I had proof. I grabbed my phone records, my work schedule, my credit card statements. On October 3rd, when Holloway claimed we met at a coffee shop in downtown to discuss payment, I was 60 miles away at a commercial build in Riverside. I had a time card signed by my supervisor. I had a receipt from the lunch truck that parked at the job site every day. October 10th, same thing. I was pouring concrete for a foundation in San Bernardino. Time card, receipts, witness testimony from a dozen guys on my crew. October 17th, working a double shift because one of my foremen called in sick. Every single date Holloway mentioned, I had documentation proving I was somewhere else entirely. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up my phone's app purchase history. No secure line subscription, no download. Nothing. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I called Thomas Vega at 6 in the morning. He answered on the second ring like he'd been expecting it. "I need you to tear apart Vince Holloway's story," I said. "And I need it yesterday." Thomas delivered in 48 hours. Secure line required a paid subscription, $99.99 a month, billed through the App Store. I'd never purchased it. My credit card records proved it. My phone's download history proved it. But Thomas went further. He pulled location data from Holloway's own phone, court-ordered subpoena, perfectly legal, and guess what? Holloway had never been anywhere near the places he claimed we'd met. Not the coffee shop, not the parking garage, not the restaurant. On October 3rd, when Holloway swore we were meeting downtown, his phone pinged off a cell tower 20 miles away in the opposite direction. Then Thomas found the key. Roseanne had subpoenaed Holloway's prison communications, visitor logs, phone calls, commissary deposits, and there it was, laid out in black and white. Sylvester Pratt had visited Holloway 4 times in the 3 weeks before the recantation. 4 visits, 4 conversations with no one else present, and after each visit, a deposit into Holloway's commissary account. $200, then $300, then $500. The deposits came from an account registered to Adam Carver. They'd bribed him. Carver had paid Holloway to lie, and Pratt had delivered the money personally. I took everything to Juliet Ashford that afternoon. She looked at the documentation for maybe 30 seconds before she picked up her phone and dialed Sylvester Pratt's number. Put it on speaker so I could hear. "Mr. Pratt," Juliet said when he answered, her voice ice-cold. "I'm adding witness tampering and obstruction of justice to your client's charges. And if I find out you were directly involved in bribing Vince Holloway, I will personally ensure you lose your license and face criminal prosecution." Pratt tried to bluster. Started talking about legal privilege and unfounded accusations. Juliet hung up on him mid-sentence. She looked at me. "We've got them." The custody hearing was 2 days later. I sat at the table next to Roseanne, watching Eunice Pemberton and her attorney argue that I was an unfit parent, that I'd staged a home invasion, that Clara was in danger living with me. Roseanne didn't even stand until they were finished. Then she demolished them. She presented my phone records, my work schedules, my time cards. She showed that Holloway's story was impossible, physically impossible, because I'd been somewhere else every single time he claimed we met. She showed the secure line subscription records proving I'd never used the app. She showed the location data from Holloway's phone. And then she showed the commissary deposits, the visitor logs, the money trail from Adam Carver to Vince Holloway, delivered by Sylvester Pratt. "Your Honor," Roseanne said, "this motion is based entirely on perjured testimony purchased by the co-defendant in the underlying criminal case. Eunice Pemberton is attempting to take custody of a traumatized child away from the parent who protected her, based on the word of a convicted criminal who was paid to lie." Judge Clark Whitmore looked at Eunice like she was something he'd scraped off his shoe. "Mrs. Pemberton," he said, "your daughter is facing charges for conspiring to murder the father of her child, and you come into my courtroom asking me to take that child away from him based on the word of a hitman who was bribed to recant his testimony?" Eunice started crying. The judge didn't care. "Motion denied," Whitmore said. "Mr. Fletcher retains full custody. This hearing is adjourned." I didn't move for a moment. Just sat there letting it sink in. Clara was mine, she was staying with me. Eunice was escorted out, sobbing. I didn't feel a thing. Diane's trial started the following week. I walked into the courthouse on day 1, and felt the weight of every camera, every reporter, every spectator trying to catch my eye. I didn't look at any of them, just kept my head forward and walked through those doors like I was heading to another job site. Juliet Ashford was waiting inside, crisp suit, files organized, ready to dismantle Diane piece by piece. "You ready?" she asked. "I've been ready," I said. She was surgical from the opening statement, laid out the entire conspiracy in 15 minutes. Diane's affair with Adam Carver, the year of planning, the $50,000 payment to Vince Holloway, the life insurance policy worth $2 million. Every fact delivered like a hammer strike. Then she played the recording. The courtroom went silent. You could hear Clara's baby monitor crackling to life, and then Diane's voice, smooth, calm, calculating, talking to someone on the phone about the timeline, the payment schedule, making sure Gerald wouldn't be a problem anymore. I watched the jury, watched their faces change, watched them look at Diane sitting at the defense table, perfectly dressed, perfectly composed, and realize exactly what kind of person she was. Juliet presented the text messages next. Diane and Carver discussing the plan, talking about the house in Malibu, joking about how easy it would be once I was gone. She presented the financial records, the withdrawals from our joint account, the cash payments to Holloway. The $20,000 Carver had contributed. Every piece of evidence was airtight. Every document was authenticated. There was no room for doubt. Then Juliet called me to the stand. Sylvester Pratt came at me hard. He tried to paint me as controlling, asked how many hours I worked each week, 60, sometimes 70, and suggested I was never home, never present, never available for Diane emotionally. "Mr.
Fletcher," Pratt said, pacing in front of the jury, "isn't it true that you prioritized work over your family?" "I prioritized providing for my family," I said. "Diane didn't work. Someone had to pay the bills. And isn't it true that you and your wife argued frequently about money?" "We argued because she spent more than we had." Pratt smiled like he'd scored a point. "So you controlled the finances?" "I managed the finances," I said. "There's a difference. Diane had access to everything. She chose to spend it on things we couldn't afford." He kept pushing. Brought up every late night, every missed dinner, every time I'd raised my voice during an argument. Tried to make it sound like I'd driven Diane to desperation. Then he went for the throat. "Mr.
"Fletcher, isn't it possible that you staged this entire incident to frame your wife and gain custody of your daughter?" The courtroom went quiet. I looked Pratt dead in the eyes. "Mr. Pratt," I said, "if I wanted to frame my wife, I wouldn't have invited a man with a gun into the house where my 7-year-old daughter sleeps. Diane did that. She hired Vince Holloway. She gave him our address. She told him when I'd be home. She created a situation where Clara could have walked downstairs and found her father dead on the kitchen floor. And she did it because she valued money more than her child's safety." Pratt didn't have a response to that. The jury was out for less than 4 hours. When they came back, I was sitting in the gallery next to Valerie. She reached over and squeezed my hand. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. The foreman stood. Read the verdict. Guilty. Conspiracy to commit murder. Guilty. Solicitation of murder. Diane screamed, not a gasp, not a sob. A full-throated scream of rage that echoed through the courtroom. She turned toward me, face twisted, and started shouting, accusing me of lying, of setting her up, of ruining her life. The judge banged his gavel, ordered her to sit down. Diane didn't sit down. She screamed at the jury, screamed at Juliet, screamed at Sylvester Pratt for failing her. Bailiffs moved in, grabbed her arms, started pulling her toward the door. She fought them the whole way, still screaming, still blaming everyone but herself. I watched her disappear through those doors, and I felt nothing but cold, complete satisfaction. The judge sentenced her 2 weeks later, 25 years to life. 2 months after that, Adam Carver's trial concluded. His lawyers tried to argue he was a peripheral figure, just a friend who'd given Diane a name, nothing more. But Juliet had the texts, the money trail, Holloway's confession about Carver's role in planning the whole thing. Carver got 20 years. 6 months later, I got a call from Juliet, Sylvester Pratt had been disbarred. Turned out she'd found concrete proof he was directly involved in bribing Holloway. Not just facilitating it, but planning it. Pratt was facing criminal charges of his own. Everyone involved paid the price. It's been 2 years since the trial. I'm standing in my backyard on a Saturday afternoon in late April, watching Clara chase our dog, a golden retriever named Biscuit, across the grass. She's 9 now, all legs and laughter, and when she throws the tennis ball, Biscuit bounds after it like it's the most important mission in the world. Valerie's at the patio table behind me, setting out food for the small gathering we're having. Just a few close friends. Her family. Nothing fancy. We got married last spring. Small ceremony at a vineyard about an hour from here. And this is our way of celebrating with the people who stood by us. Clara was the flower girl. Took the job very seriously. Practiced her walk down the aisle for a week straight. I hear Valerie laugh at something one of her cousins says, and I glance back. She catches my eye and smiles. That same genuine, warm smile that made me feel hope when I didn't think I had any left. Clara runs up to me, breathless, Biscuit at her heels. "Dad, can we get a cat too?" "A cat?" "Yeah, for when I'm a veterinarian. I need to practice with different animals." I crouch down, hands on my knees. "You've got time before you're a vet, kiddo. Let's see how you do with Biscuit first." She nods thoughtfully, then throws the ball again. Biscuit takes off like a shot. Clara still sees Dr. Townsend once a month. The nightmares have mostly stopped. She hasn't woken up screaming in over 6 months. She's doing great in school, made friends, joined the art club. Last week she told me she wants to be a veterinarian because animals never lie. That broke my heart and made me proud at the same time. I'm still in construction, still managing sites. But I cut back my hours. I realized, really realized, that no amount of money is worth missing my daughter's childhood. I was so focused on providing, on making sure we had enough, that I almost forgot what enough actually looks like. We're not rich, but we're comfortable, we're happy. That's enough. I hear things about Diane sometimes, not often, but enough to know how it's going for her. She's in a state prison upstate. From what I understand, she's not doing well. Her appeals have been denied twice. Most of her old friends don't visit anymore. Her mother goes occasionally, but even that's getting less frequent. She wrote me a letter last year, asked me to bring Clara to visit. Said she missed her daughter. Said she wanted a chance to explain. I burned it. Some people might say that's harsh. Some people might say I should let Clara decide for herself whether she wants a relationship with her mother. But here's what I know. Diane didn't just betray me. She created a situation where Clara could have walked downstairs and found her father dead on the kitchen floor. She hired a man with a gun and gave him our address. She traumatized that little girl, her own daughter, for money. There's no forgiveness for that. There's no both sides. There's only consequences. Adam Carver's businesses collapsed after his conviction. His ex-wife took everything in the divorce settlement. Last I heard, he's serving his time in some minimum security facility, probably counting the days until he gets out and realizing nobody's going to be waiting for him. I don't think about either of them much anymore. They took up enough of my life. What I think about now is the future. Clara's future. My future with Valerie. The life we're building together. A life based on trust, honesty, and actually showing up for the people you love. If you've been betrayed by someone you trusted, really betrayed, the kind that makes you question everything you thought you knew about that person, I want you to know something. You can survive it. You can come out the other side stronger. But you have to fight for it. You have to refuse to be a victim. And you have to make damn sure that the person who hurt you faces real consequences. Not because revenge feels good, though I won't lie, it does, but because justice matters, because protecting your children matters, and because some people will never stop hurting others until someone stops them. I stopped Diane. I made sure she faced every consequence. I dismantled her plan, exposed her conspiracy, and ensured she lost everything she valued. And now Clara and I get to live the rest of our lives free of her. That's not revenge. That's justice. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day, In the meantime, there are two stories on the screen that are even better.